was a far better proposition. But before a deal had been made with Essendon, Daniher's name was floated around the traps by South to see if there were any interested parties. And while the football world knew that Daniher was up for sale, Terry was oblivious until a stranger called.
We had hay carton up home at the time, and it was back about November or early December, and we had Kevin Dixon, I think was the promotions officer at Fitzroy at the time, arrived up on our doorsteps, and we come home with a truckload of hay, and here's this bloke parked under the pepper tree, sound asleep, and Mum had been in to do some shopping, and I said, the old man was a bit wary, he wasn't too sure who this fella was. He had Vic number plates on. We woke him up, banged on the roof and said, what are you doing up here, son? You know, what's going on? And it turned out to be Kevin, and you know, to cut a long story short, he said that I would be interested in obtaining your services, and I said, well, you know, what's going on here? And they said, haven't you heard yet? South Melbourne have given you the flick, I suppose, so that's how I first got wind of it. And but a little bit further down the track, when I come to South Melbourne and they sort of hummed and hawed a little bit for a while and said, oh, we want you to stay, but you know, we're looking for a couple of other players, and I think that's virtually the way, you know, I could see the writing on the wall, I suppose you could say, and I was just fortunate, I guess, that you know, Fitzroy gave me the opportunity, and a little bit further down the track, so did Essendon. They come and wanted to have a chat to us, and I just sort of picked Essendon, not for any real reason other than, you know, Barry Daves had just taken over as coach, and you know, sort of always known Barry to be a pretty good player in his day, and I just knew one or two players from our Essendon way. That's the only reason virtually that I took on Essendon. It wasn't over money or anything like that.
The deal, Neville Fields for Terry Daniher and his untried little brother Neil, a handy cricketer and footballer from Assumption College. Daniher had been given another go at the big time, and he knew it was now or never.
I just thought to myself, well, I'm terribly lucky, and I bet this will be my last chance. I better go and make a go of it.
The first thing Daniher came to realise was that the boy from Angary could play the game at the highest level.
Once you played one or two games, you got a little bit more confidence up, and you just sort of got better as you went. You thought after a while, well, hell, I can mix it with anyone. So, and that's the way it fell into place very well. And along with Neil, he was untried really. He was up at Assumption College at the time, finishing his final year of school, and I think that you know, it was just going to be a matter of time, because probably Neil, out of all the four boys, he had the most ability.
And grab the opportunity Terry Daniher did, and his motto, simply hard work. So much so that over the years, coach Kevin Sheedy has had to threaten Daniher with fines to stop him from training.
I mean, you don't often say to a guy, look, if you don't stop training, we're going to fine you. That's probably the only player I've ever done that to, or mentioned it to, or hinted to. But, you know, he really, he knows himself, you know, he knows generally, but when Terry hits a wall, he says, well, the only way out of it's hard work, and that's the way he looks at his life and his football, and that's probably a good quality to have. Sometimes it's just up to a guy in my position, just happens to be the coach, who says, maybe you should look at another way and go and have a holiday and, you know, spend a night or two home. And, well, that's all right, son, you know, but I know me, and I reckon that this is what I've got to do, but if you think that, well, I'll consider it later on.
I think Terry probably spends his whole day looking forward to training, and when he gets out on the track, he has at different times he's probably upset Sheeds a little bit, but not because of any other reason except that he's just being himself and enjoying himself and having a good time. And I've never come across anyone in football that enjoys themselves at training as much as Terry does.
But once again, just as things were looking up for the new gun Essendon full forward, another setback when Daniher, playing against his old team, suffered a broken jaw.
Oh, I think it's just one of those things. I think there's not too many players go through a football career without copping one or two, and it's just a bit of bad luck that I had at the time. But what made it worse was, you know, if you don't play too well in a particular match, I think you bring the thing on a bit yourself. You get a little bit desperate to get out. I was beaten that particular day, and it was against my old club, South Melbourne, and I was playing on Mark Browning. He'd done a pretty good job on me for most of the match, and I was getting to the stage where I was getting a bit desperate for a kick, and probably went in a little bit harder, and didn't see an arm come up, and the rest is history. I spent 8 weeks out there.
you know, I found him late in my career. I played on him down here, and he chopped me up actually one day. I thought, gee, this kid's going to go somewhere. And then, of course, when I was then I retired not long after, about a year or two, and then as a channel, as a TV observer, I was watching the games, and then unfortunately got his jaw fractured, or cheekbone fractured, probably about 1980, I think it was, and he moved down to the back line probably when I came over there. So I think his first year possibly would have been half back, full back pocket, and he really started playing again a lot better. He had just sort of that mediocre year. He showed a promising full forward at one period, but then he went down, and then of course now he's a very good utility player.
I think you just worry a little bit about the injuries, whether it's mended enough, because you're pretty eager to get back out there and play again, and I think most players will get back try and get back a little bit earlier, and I think it's until you get a couple of knocks on the jaw, you're right after that. Virtually, you soon pick up that bit of confidence that you lost.
And just as Terry Daniher took the knocks that day against the Swans and showed he could come back hard, so too has his courageous brothers. Neil, arguably the most gifted of them all, 3 knee reconstructions. A captain of the club, but never able because of injury to lead his team onto the ground. Anthony, he too sacked by the Swans. And Chris, the youngest, who had his knee reconstructed before he even had a sniff of big-time football. Despite all this, on an atrocious night for football in Sydney, the Daniher clan ran out together for the first time to represent New South Wales against Victoria. Not only was it a magnificent night for the Harbour State defeating the might of Victoria, it was one of the greatest moments in the life of an entire family.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good night. It was a good night for for football up there, really, because it needs a bit of an injection, to get a game like that. And I guess a lot of people sort of treated the game as a bit of a joke. And looking back in hindsight, and probably looking back, we thought, we had to. We were under a lot of pressure because we had to perform. We didn't want to have it being such a one-side, just a one-sided event. So there's a lot of butterflies in the old gut, I can tell you, before we went out to play that game. But that was a great game, and that was one of the games that'll stay in the back of my mind, for quite some time.
Hungary is quite an amazing sort of place because, they produce 4 league footballers, which is a tremendous effort from a little country town. And not quite often, like you look at all the areas of Australia and you have a good. I've been up there a couple of times, and that for the Danihers to really get their act together by probably watching replays over the years in the 60s and 70s and that, and Jim and Edna to persuade their boys that footy seems to be the one that they want them to play. And of course they've got a lot of sisters too, don't forget. And it's been a very interesting family, and a tremendous credit to the whole family, really, not just the boys, but girls, the brothers, sisters, and mum and dad.
And not long after at Moorabbin against St Kilda, the 4 brothers again ran on together for Essendon, the first time that 4 brothers had represented a side in senior AFL football.
It was great to get out there with the 4 of them. I can still remember running through the banner. I've never even sort of running through the grand final banner last year, but probably not. I didn't know what I was doing. I was in, there's a lot of things happening then, but it just felt great running out there with 3 brothers.
Good thing for the family, I mean, they played nationally for New South Wales and tremendous in beating Victoria. And of course for Essendon, who actually is the club that actually recruited the whole 4 boys eventually and got them together. That was good to see them get out there and play, and they all played quite well, and just unfortunate probably in the end Neil didn't get in that grand final side, and Chrissy did. I think it was his 10th game in a grand final, which is a pretty good effort, but probably looking back, Neil's the one that put so much effort in to try and get there. So I think everybody felt a great deal of admiration from that point of view. Of course, Derry's in the middle, and Anthony soon's playing his 200th game, so they're quite unique.
Family means a lot to Terry Daniher, and while they used to like to belt the hell out of each other as kids, there is no mistaking the respect Terry has for his younger brother Neil.
It was pretty disappointing because he'd just taken over the captaincy at the club, and things were looking real good for him, and then doing a knee and getting it right and then doing it again and then doing the other one, it sort of he's done really well to persevere, I think, and it was just a credit to him that he was able to fight his way back and make it back into AFL football, which he'd done, and I think he could sort of walk away pretty happy, you know, that he did sort of make the effort to come back.
But at the same time, Terry has an answer for his younger brother's knee problems.
Well, I told him, listen, when you go home during the off-season, you come and run these gravel roads with me and across the paddock. And he said, he wouldn't have a bar of that, see, and we'll get out and work. Neil's always, he's been very fortunate. He's a bit smarter than probably the rest of us, and won a scholarship to go away to school and spends 4 years away in Goulburn, and then a further his remaining 2 years at Assumption. So a lot, whereas we were working on the farm, and that Neil spent a lot of time away, and whether that, you know, we've always been on our feet and climbing ladders or, you know, hay cart and this and that, and I think that sort of helps strengthen maybe the knees up a little bit. Myself, touch wood, haven't had a lot of any trouble with knees, but again, Neil had a lot of trouble, and I just felt that he needed to, you know, perhaps if he'd done a bit more of that labouring type work, it might have helped him, but I don't think, you know, if you're going to do a knee, it's going to happen. If you've got your leg in the wrong place, they go so easily, don't they? But I always felt, you know, at times he could have done, you know, had a little bit of labouring work, might have helped him a little bit.
Not that Terry is an inverted snob or anything, but you can tell there was plenty of rivalry between the farm boy elder brother and the scholarship-educated younger brother Neil.
When you look back, you know, you used to have a lot of ding-dong battles with Neil. Neil's been the second eldest boy in the family. He'd come home from college and he sort of learnt the correct way to, for example, say, playing cricket. We used to play a bit of cricket up home there and during the summer, and Neil, Dad, and we got together and we put down a glazed wicket, about half the length of a cricket pitch, and we put her out in front of Mum's backboard where she used to practice the tennis and that, and we'd get out there and we'd have our little test matches out there, and we started off with a little 20-gallon drum, put a couple of them on top of one another, but after a while Neil he'd sort of learned how to bat pretty well away at school. I couldn't get the bugger out, so I'd had to revert to a 44-gallon drum, make it a bit bigger so I got a better chance of getting him out, and then we had to bring in a few rules, and that we had to, on Mum's backboard, tennis backboard, we drew a chalk mark across, and anywhere above stump high, if you nicked it over the top and hit the board above the line when you were out, and then past if you hit her into the fruit trees, you were automatically out, and if you hit her over the fence, you were out. And but Neil had this thing, he could just block her, he'd drop her just short of the fruit trees, and you'd never be able to get the bugger out. And of course I'd be the bloke buddy bowling all day down the block, and the worst thing would be him saying, "You had enough, mate? You want a bat? Come on, come and have a bat." You know, that even made me wilder, so I'd go back a bit another 4 or 5 strides and rip her in a bit harder. I had no worries about that 44-gallon drum. I was only trying to knock him off.
And Terry's hatred of losing wasn't just saved for his brothers.
Everything was very competitive, you know, no matter what we did. I had a sister in between myself and Neil, and she was quite a good sprinter, and I had to get out of the block. She actually did a bit of work and was coached there for a while with a local bloke up there, and she got into the sprinting pretty well. She used to use me as practice, and there's one thing that I wasn't going to have her beat me, you know, and I was always getting away a bit early and cheat whenever I could, but there's a couple of times she went around me.
That hatred for losing has always been a part of the way Terry Daniher plays football. No one can deny that Terry Daniher is committed to the team cause 100%. While the career of Daniher will always be remembered, so too will one of his very few indiscretions of that lifetime of football. It occurred on October 6, 1990, the scene, the Melbourne Cricket Ground, grand final day, the match, the grand final versus Collingwood.
17, lead Essendon, 2-2, quarter. And we have a brawl on the siren up there. Always receiving plenty of attention is Kelly.
We thought this had happened very early on, and now they're not mucking around, these guys. And usually this does happen early
happened with, you know, why the Mallee started. Eddie, you know, obviously the guys got a bit heated up there, and we were a long way away from the action at the time, and we come down through the centre, and with my opponent Gavin Brown was probably just a couple of yards in front, and you know, I was firstly sort of happened, well, this Mallie's going to be cut out by the time we get down anyway because we're so far away from the actual incident, and but no, she hadn't, and it was still going. Blokes are pushing and shoving and carrying on, and virtually all of what happened was that one of my teammates come out of the ground, and Gavin jumped into him, and I didn't like what I saw there. Thought it was a bit unfair, and I sort of just let out my frustrations, I suppose, as you could say, and the rest is history, I guess.
The result, an 11-week suspension after being found guilty by the tribunal of striking both Gavin Brown and Craig Starcevich. Not only did Terry face the angry Collingwood players and their supporters, but also their coach, Lee Matthews.
Going to the change rooms at half-time, and Lee Matthews was pointing the finger at me and giving me a hard time, and I was pretty well steamed up, so I was giving a little bit back.
Daniher suffered after that suspension. He received hate mail and felt the world had changed after just one football match. But he soon was picked to captain Australia against Ireland in the Gaelic football series, and Daniher was again face to face with Gavin Brown, this time as a teammate. And it showed that things had not changed that much since the days of playing football one day and rugby the next back in Ungary.
Essendon were hosting a luncheon, and both the Collingwood hierarchy and Essendon hierarchy were together, and we were able to intermix, and I was fortunate enough to be able to get over. Lou Richards invited me over to a table, and we sat down and had a good chat with both, I think, Lee Matthews' wife and Gabby Allen's, and it's just good to sit down and have a chat, and you know, I think, you know, their feeling is that all is forgotten, which is the way it should be. I feel, you know, certainly the same way with me. You just got to get on with football, and little things like that pop up. They're just a problem. You've got to solve it as best and as quickly as you can, and just get on with your life, you know.
Barwick will need a 60-metre kick to score. It's a beautiful looking kick. Will land in the square. Essendon mark taken by Terry Daniher. And what an absolute champion Terry Daniher is. They had a big job back there picking up Gavin Brown.